Hollywood Stuntmakers. Today, the great chases. Today on Hollywood Stuntmakers, we'll explore the great chase. From classic car chases to aerial dogfights. Plus, we'll take a behind-the-scenes look at how a chase scene is filmed. Chase scenes. They've become an art form. Be it by car, horseback, airplane, or even on foot. A great chase scene, in fact, can be the high point of a movie. The accident you've just seen wasn't planned, but was a result of a miscalculation. In this famous chase scene of William Friedkin's The French Connection, luckily no one was injured and the crash made for a more exciting moment. The scene took 5 weeks to shoot, during which New York authorities gave Friedkin control of the elevated track, the street, and all traffic lights. Two identical brown sedans were used, one with the back seat replaced by 2 cameras to allow for over-shoulder shots like this. Each shot was rehearsed several times at half speed. Then, with as many as 4 cameras rolling, the cars were set in motion at speeds up to 90 miles per hour. Half the time, it's really Gene Hackman behind the wheel. According to Friedkin, despite safety precautions, crew members crossed their fingers and prayed a lot. The French Connection, which won Friedkin an Oscar, was such a success he couldn't help reprising himself. The original script for To Live and Die in L.A. didn't include a chase scene, but director Friedkin felt it was just what the film needed. You'll see that a great chase has to have more than just high speed and crashes. Constantly puts obstacles in our hero's way. Time is running out, so tension continues to build. We, the audience, recognize that the stakes are incredibly high. All the quick cuts and near misses make this action scene. Notice how the car in this scene appears to be skidding all over the road. Well, here's a little secret. The car was mounted on a swivel bed so that it could pivot back and forth. What Friedkin offers his fans is action like this. When you think you've seen everything, he takes you to a new level of intensity. Each turn, crash, and near miss is carefully planned and rehearsed. For a film like To Live and Die in L.A., which employed 72 stunt people, that means a lot of rehearsing. This is the shot maker. Now, it can do many things, but it's an absolute must when shooting a chase scene. Now, let's meet the operator who used it in our opening sequence.
The most challenging part of the chase scene is just getting the shot and making sure that what ends up on film is what the boss wants. What we have here is a $1 million multi-purpose camera platform can be used as a camera car, an insert car, a crane, standby generator, a three-faceted vehicle. Well, of course, anything in the camera car business, the safety is paramount. And, it's our philosophy that we don't do anything that jeopardizes lives or equipment. When we get out to on location, we get together, go over and over, prior to even starting a vehicle, what the director has in mind, what the stunt coordinator has in mind, so it's in everybody's mind exactly what the shot is, where everybody will be at any given time, so that everybody is fully aware of where they're supposed to be at any given moment, and go for broke, shoot it. We have six-wheel configuration, which gives us six-wheel steering. We can clamp sideways or turn entire circles for maneuverability. Have a 23-foot crane arm, two-man configuration, which can either be used as a crane, locked off in a standing position for getting high shots, boom shots, or doing tow shots, running shots for action footage. The driver can run this from the cab, primarily for going forwards, and then in conjunction with the driver steering the front wheel, the dolly grip can run it from the hot seat here, has its own brake, has a joystick, which drives the vehicle frontwards and backwards, and left and right steers the rear axle, so he has complete control of the vehicle from back here for doing dolly shots and so forth. Most of the camera cars started out as just a pickup truck or a run-of-the-mill automobile with the back end chopped off and a flatbed constructed there. Since then, we've gotten into sophisticated airbag suspensions, the diversification of vehicles, and it's mostly just keeping up with technology.
Well, that's a look at how a great chase scene is done today. Let's take a look back at where it all began. Producers and directors discovered early on that an excellent chase scene was practically a guaranteed audience pleaser. They found ways to include them in many comedies and dramas. The foot chase was used over and over in the biggest films of the day. As in every great chase, obstacles abound as our hero tries to get away. The best chases always kept the audience wondering, how can he possibly escape? The greater the odds, the greater the thrill. For a comical chase, this director tried dressing heroes in kilts, putting them on a tandem bicycle and sending them for a dizzying ride down a steep road with the bad guys closing in behind them. The good guy chasing the bad guy. A classic element in every Western that rolled out of Hollywood. Every kid in the theater wished that he could be right up there on the screen riding the horses. Even some of the adults shared that desire. The Western has always allowed us to play out our most basic need to see good triumph over evil. The hero must win, but not without a struggle. Some chases took place at sea, some in the air, where every near miss over and under obstacles made the audiences gasp. There's no margin for error in stunts like these. Now here's how some of the early techniques still apply in films. Robocop 2. Because the hero is half man, half machine, he can withstand punishment too grueling for a mere mortal. But obstacles are placed in his way. It appears he might lose. to give up easily, Robocop, played by Peter Weller, finds another vehicle and resumes his pursuit of the villain, played by Tom Noonan. The showdown, the classic standoff, where two men on opposite sides of the law prepare to do battle. All of these pieces serve to set up the climax for the violent conclusion. Here's Arnold Schwarzenegger in Paul Verhoeven's film Total Recall. Need a ride?
That was so quick.
These guys are going hysterical. Although this setting for the chase scene is a futuristic city, elements used in the French Connection come into mind. As the good guys are being chased, obstacles are again placed in our hero's way to build the tension. To heighten the audience's anxiety even more, the cars must speed through a very narrow tunnel, making the environment feel claustrophobic to the viewer.
What you trying to do to me, man? Shut up and drive! Hey, I got some kids to feed!
Not only a great action film, Total Recall offered director Paul Verhoeven an opportunity to explore his imagination.
I like to create worlds where people can get to. I mean, it's like I always try in this kind of movies to let the audience, give the audience a trip into another world, if it's in the past or in the future, and that it is a convincing world, a world that feels consistent to them and is plausible. And I think that's the trip that people like to take.
Takes you on the roller coaster all the way through, and I felt if anyone can master this script to put it on a screen, people would be entertained and would talk about it for years. And it was just a matter of finding a director that would be able to do that. And finally, after seeing Robocop, Paul Verhoeven was the one in my mind. I said, that's the guy that can do it. He has the right mentality for it, and the discipline and the know-how.
I've never heard Arnold say anything, but it makes sense. If there's and it's mostly if we cannot solve a shot or something doesn't work with all these action stuff. There are really difficult choreographic movements, and sometimes we just cannot get it. And Arnold comes sometimes up with really good solutions.
From Hell's Angels to Star Wars, aerial chases have come a long way. And next, we're going to talk to a man who specializes in creating magic in the air. This is Lacey Aviation, and this is Clay Lacey. He's one of the top aerial stunt coordinators in the world. Now, how about you, Miss Round a little bit?
Okay, this way. Okay, this is the top Astrovision system in the Learjet, and we have a normal camera on here, but that's the only thing that's standard that you're used to seeing. It rotates 360 degrees. And there's a mirror in the end of the periscope that tilts so that it enables you to fly completely around the subject aircraft and go up and down with the tilt. The same system also is at the bottom of the aircraft. And this is how we follow airliners and fighters, make movies with. We operate with a crew of 4, a pilot, director, which is myself normally, and a co-pilot, and then a cameraman in the rear and assistant cameraman, which loads the film and takes care of, be sure that the cameras are operating properly. In the Lear, we have 3 camera positions, one being the nose camera here, which we use for straight ahead point of view shots. But the Lear is a very stable platform, and it's just rock steady in the air, and the nose cone without a gyro or without any type of a shock system works fine. The film Iron Eagle 2, we filmed it in Israel, and Israel's a very small country, and on each side they have unfriendly neighbors, so the big problem on Iron Eagle 2 was really staying within the airspace confines of the country of Israel, because the jet fighters, as you know, eat up space pretty quickly.
As in all great chases, this aerial chase has all the necessary elements. The planes are flying at tremendous speeds. The tension is high because of the quick cutting, and the audience's desire to have the good guys beat the bad guys.
Everyone involved with filming any type of a formation aerial scene or a dogfight type scene has to be experienced in formation type flying, because much of it's done very close together, only feet apart, and generally speaking, it takes someone with a military background, but that's not always the case. And not always does a military pilot understand the film either.
Great air chases don't always involve airplanes.
A helicopter chase can be just as exciting as in this scene from Blue Thunder starring Roy Scheider and Malcolm McDowell. The aerial chases were so complicated that as many as 10 cameras were used at once to ensure total coverage of the action. The Blue Thunder helicopter itself was actually a French-made transport vehicle, modified and loaded with realistic weaponry, which made the aircraft heavy and difficult to fly. To compensate, the gas tank had to be filled to half its normal capacity, and the 8 different stunt pilots who flew Blue Thunder had to limit their airspeeds to 100 miles per hour, all of which had to be taken into account by choreographers.
The way we choreograph an aerial chase scene is I will plan it out ahead of time as to what the director wants. Then I will make drawings, side view drawings and top view drawings of where the subject airplane should be and what the start position is. And once we're in that position, we'll call action. We'll do a few seconds, and then it'll be a cut.
The complex calculations of a great stunt flyer make scenes like this come off like clockwork. Not only must the 2 helicopters carefully maneuver between dozens of obstacles, so must the helicopter shooting the scene.
Learjet we use at the high speeds from 125 miles an hour up to 400 plus, but there are many requirements for 100 miles an hour down to 0. So we use a helicopter, and the thing that makes the helicopter work is the gyrosphere system designed by Howard Preston. And while it looks like a normal Mitchell camera here with a magazine, the real heart of this is the gyro system. It has 4 gyros in it inside of this ball, and it keeps the camera level. It takes vibration out, makes it a stable platform, and enables you to use a zoom lens. And it's electric servoed so that the camera will tilt or pan. Okay, since the gyrosphere system on the helicopter is remote controlled, the pilot sits in the right seat here, and the cameraman sits next to him and looks through the television monitor, which is looking right through the camera lens, and controls the camera remotely. When he uses his thumb button to push forward and aft, it tilts the camera left and right, makes it pan. The other hand here, we have a zoom control. But since the days of hanging out the side of airplanes or standing on the wing are rapidly fading into the past. It takes a remote-controlled system where the operator can ride inside in comfort out of the wind to run the system.
Thanks, Clay, for the tour. It's really incredible.
Stop by any time.
In the 1971 film Vanishing Point, the hero played by Barry Newman tries to drive from Denver to San Francisco in 15 hours. This existential cult favorite, directed by Richard Sarafian, is almost all chase. Cars, motorcycles, and helicopters. Advances in special effects technology allow scenes like this to be shot relatively inexpensively using miniatures and optical effects. But that's today. Back in 1971, when you saw a car crash on the screen, it was really a car crash. Next up, Rennie Harlan, director of the blockbuster action film Die Harder.
One of the biggest sequences in Die Hard 2 was the sequence where Bruce Willis descends from a helicopter onto the wing of a 747 and there's a fight scene. I was very involved in the screenwriting. First we designed the scene with the screenwriter. Then I sat down and I storyboarded it very carefully, shot by shot. Because with action and special effects movies, it's all in preparation. That's the way to save money. Then I got together with my stunt coordinator, my effects coordinator, and my visual effects coordinator, the opticals coordinator from ILM. And we sat down and we looked at all the shots, and they would ask me, do you really want this shot where you see the plane moving, and you see the ground, and you see the helicopter, and you see the guy? Do you really need that? And I say, yes. It was a combination of stunts, miniatures, real-time shooting, and also we ended up building the whole wing of 747 on a soundstage here at Fox, and we had to refrigerate the whole soundstage because there was a fight on the wing, and I wanted their breath to be steaming and their sweat to be steaming and so on. So we built it in real size, and let me tell you, 747 has a big wing. Bruce Willis is a very unique actor because he enjoys doing his own stunts, and sometimes it can be very difficult with a director because I need him every day, and if he gets injured or something, I don't have my star. So sometimes I'll be dragging him down from towers and wings and places and telling him not to do it. And he's a perfectionist, so he always wanted to do the scene first as far as he can take it, so that then the stuntman will copy him as some actors let the stuntman do the whole thing, then they look at the scene and say, well, okay, let's throw my face in and those couple of places and it'll look like me. But Bruce wants it to be his style and his movement and his technique and so on. And it's very difficult because it's very dangerous. And my job as a director is to make sure that I get the most incredible, elaborate stunts and special effects as safely as possible, so safe that nothing can happen to anybody. And we shot Die Hard for several months, and it involves a lot of huge effects, and nobody was injured in the movie.
The increase in careful stunt planning over the years has allowed stars like Bruce Willis to be more involved in the stunt-making process. Some of these stunts took half a day to devise, with the rest of the day spent setting up 8 cameras used to capture all the excitement on film. The end result contains all the elements of the classic chase: breakneck speeds, the latest firearms, and the bad guys versus the good guys, in what looks like a no-win situation for our hero.
action movies, effects movies are easy to do because you have all these technicians and they do the work for you. But these are wonderful people and talented people, and you certainly couldn't do anything without them. But as a director, you have to be able to coordinate these people and tell them what you want, because they come to you and they say, what do you want? And there are a million things you can do, a million ways to do the simple action scene, somebody fighting with somebody or shooting somebody or something exploding. You can do it in 10 million ways. And your job is to coordinate it, plan it, be able to express yourself, and then shoot it so that it's as effective as possible.
The Great Escape, directed by John Sturges, is one of the most brilliantly told chase stories ever made. The film depicts the efforts of a group of Allied prisoners of war who attempt to escape from a German prison camp. Whereas most of today's chase scenes are shot with cranes and camera cars like the Shotmaker, this one, shot in 1963, relies mostly on stationary cameras and inventive cutting to keep the pace high. Much against the wishes of the studio heads, Steve McQueen insisted on performing his own dangerous motorcycle stunts. That decision firmly established McQueen as an action hero for the rest of his career, and this is still considered to be one of the finest chases of all time.
In the early days of Hollywood, it was fairly easy to land a job as a stuntman. If you were an out-of-work actor or a director's chauffeur, all you needed was some guts, athletic ability, and a willingness to flirt with danger, and the job could be yours. Certain stuntmen began to emerge from the ranks, ones spotted for their special talents. These men became stunt superstars. Names you might not know, but you'll certainly recognize their work.
Perhaps the most famous was Yakima Canute, who began his legendary career as a cowboy in the old Pathé serials and westerns. His work is largely associated with John Wayne, since he served as Wayne's stunt double for most of the Duke's long career. In addition to doubling for John Wayne in the scene from the John Ford classic Stagecoach, Canute also played the Indian who was shot by the Duke in what has become the film's most famous stunt. About Yakima Canute's influence on the history of stunt making.
Yakima, of course, was very successful with his run that he did, and I copied a lot of the stuff. I had a long talk with him before we did it. In fact, some of the equipment we used, some of the spreaders, some of the eveners, the tongue, and one swing bar he used back in 1938. Now, he incorporated that into my equipment. The longer you stay under those horses, it was a six-up, which means there's leaders and swing team and wheelers, the wheelers being the closest to the coach. The longer you're under them, the more peril you're in. The more things can go wrong. And if anybody knows anything about putting horses in a hitch, it's like driving a keg of dynamite. Anything can happen at any time because the chances of success are nil going in. And when you stay under them as long as I tried to do, the percentages worked against me and I got run over. The wheel horse on the left side of the coach, looking back at it, would be the right side. He stepped on my thigh and knocked my handhold loose, and I spit out the side of the coach on what would be the passenger side of an automobile, the right side of the stagecoach, and the rear wheel ran over both knees. Ran over this one and tore everything from here down loose, and luckily it didn't run over my head, because those wheels are only about that big, about that wide, and they get pretty knifey when they are traveling at that kind of speed. And they left it in the, it's in the show, and you don't really see it because it happens so fast, and you don't really know what happened. So in the context of everything, it looks like I was shot and killed, and that's what happened to me. But in effect, I was down under all 6 of them for about, 150 yards maybe. Well, I had the privilege of working with this grand gentleman 3 different times, and he was the greatest. No two ways about it. He pioneered everything and did some stuff that we look back at today in awe of what he attempted, and he was successful with about 98% of it. So I got a lot of respect for him.
Here's another unbelievable stunt performed by Yakima Canute. What he brought to chase scenes of yesteryear, modern-day stunt coordinator Terry Leonard is applying to today's action films. Let's hear what he has to say about his favorites.
My favorite stunt in Blue Thunder was blowing that car in half on the bridge. Roy Scheider is protecting his girlfriend who's making a run to the TV station with the tape that incriminates the bad guys, and the sequence was designed to shoot it in 3 pieces once the car gets blown down. And we didn't really have the time to set those 3 particular cuts, so we went ahead and did it all at once. Of course, we've never blown the car in half. We don't know how it's going to handle, and we're up there on this bridge, and I'm looking at the effects guy and say, what happens if this thing takes off and goes over the bridge? I mean, there isn't much car left around you. You know, it's kind of us against the concrete at the bottom. So I was driving the car, and Glenn Randall Jr. was the guy that blew it up when he hits the nail boards and has to hit the right nail so that the right pieces come apart, and the whole car came apart in half, and down the road we went. But it all worked, and that, again, is a testimony of the effects guys, because they put all this stuff together, and we're kind of a test pilot for those things. And sometimes they work, and most of the time they work. Sometimes they don't. So obviously we had a question on just how far we could go with this car, and we've got to make about a run halfway down the bridge, and we're crashing and banging off of cars with just the front half of this automobile that's come apart. And I enjoyed that piece. How I got into stunt business, I was attending college at the University of Arizona, and I'd worked as a local extra down there. They made a lot of westerns back in the early 60s. And the first picture I ever worked on was a film called McClintock with John Wayne. And the guy that had doubled John Wayne from 1947 on, he and I became good friends, a guy named Chuck Roberson. So he said, if you're ever interested in becoming a stuntman, which at that time I was just, you know, they'd pay you $20 a day and $5 a day extra if you got on a horse. And here I am 25 years later. My favorite stunt in Romancing the Stone, I was hired on that picture as a stunt coordinator and second unit director, so I directed all the action sequences on the film as a director. I did one stunt as a stuntman, and that was taking the car off the waterfall. It isn't as good a stunt as I would like to have performed. I envisioned this great stunt where I was going to pull a big Greg Louganis and just sail right down the most prettiest swan dive you've ever seen. Well, it didn't work that way. I fell straight down with the car and hit in the impact zone of the waterfall, and there was so much water coming over that it didn't let me out. So I was trapped, I was out of air, and for all intents and purposes, I was dead. And why I came out and got one breath of air, I'll never know. But it wasn't my time to go, I guess. That was a thrill. That was strictly an adrenaline rush for me and Vince Dedrick Jr., who I had doubling Kathleen Turner, I was doubling Michael Douglas.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Hollywood Stuntmakers.
Come on, let's go.
Here's my right now.